Hello. In this lecture, we'll be discussing the Electoral College and going over what the Electoral College does, how it came to be, how it affects our government, and how it elects our president.
Good morning, class. Today we have a movie on the Electoral College. It's going to ask us a couple questions along the way, then I have a PowerPoint afterwards.
In the U.S., we don't.
Here is a basic rundown of how the Electoral College works in the United States when electing a president. Hope you enjoy.
Directly vote for our president or vice president. Instead, we use something called the Electoral College. The Electoral College. So when you show up to vote on election day, and election day will happen in November of an election year, and it could happen as early as November 2nd, and it could happen as late as November 8th, and it's going to be the Tuesday after the first Monday in the month. So it'll be November 2nd if the first Monday is November 1st, and it'll be November 8th if the first Monday is November 7th. And so you go on election day, and you will see a ballot that'll have the presidential candidates, it'll have their parties there, it'll have the vice presidential candidates, and you'll vote for one of them. But in actuality, when you are voting for candidate A.
All right, class. How early can election day take place? A or B?
A!
B.
Correct answer was A. We will continue.
Yay!
Let's say candidate A is a Democrat. You're not actually voting for candidate A. You're actually voting for a slate of electors who promise to vote for that candidate. So you electors for that candidate. And it isn't in most states proportional based on what proportion of people vote for one candidate or another.
All right. How late can an election day take place? November 8th, November 2nd, or November 10th?
November 10th.
Yeah, we'll go with that.
You guys were wrong. It is actually November 8th.
Aw.
It is the second Tuesday of the month.
It's in most of the states, except for Maine and Nebraska, it is a winner-take-all system. So what do I mean by that? So right here, you have the breakdown of the United States by state of how many electors each state gets. And the number of electors is essentially the number of congressmen that state has. For example, California has 2 senators. Every state has 2 senators. California has 2 senators and 53 congressmen. And those of you who aren't familiar with it, every state gets 2 senators, and the congressman or the House of Representatives is dictated by population. California is a huge state, 2 senators, 53 representatives. You have Texas, 2 senators, and it has 32 representatives. You go to Louisiana, you have 2 senators, and you have 7 representatives. So the electors per state is based on the total number of congressmen. So the number of senators plus the number of representatives. That's what gives us 55 in California, 9 in Louisiana, 34 in Texas. But what's interesting here is it's a winner-take-all system in every state except for Nebraska and Maine. In every other state, if I get 51% of the vote in Texas.
All right. How many senators does every state have?
Two.
Yep.
Two.
You are correct. Every state has 2 senators, and then the House of Representatives is based on the population of the states.
I get all 34 electoral votes in the Electoral College. If I get 51, or even if I get 50.1%, just a slight majority of the votes in California, I will get all of the votes for California in the Electoral College. And in general, or in actuality, the president whoever gets the majority of the electoral votes in the United States. And right now that threshold is, or that magic number, you could think of it that way, is 270 electoral college votes. Electoral college votes. If no candidate is able to hit this threshold of 270 electoral college votes, then it will go to the U.S. Congress. And in the U.S. Congress, it's interesting because it isn't one congressman, one vote, or actually I should say the U.S. House of Representatives. It'll go to the U.S. House of Representatives, and it won't be one representative, one vote. What will happen is the representatives in each state will vote together, and each state will get only one vote. So in a tiebreaker, the big states really lose out, because in the tiebreaker, Texas will get only one vote, California will get one vote, and Alaska will get 1 vote, and Rhode Island will get 1 vote. So Rhode Island will have just as much say in a tiebreaker as California will over who will be president.
So, what is the magic number of electoral votes a president candidate has to receive in order to win the election?
270.
Yeah.
That is correct. Once a president reaches 270 votes, they win the election no matter what.
Then they'll just keep voting until someone gets a simple majority of the votes by state. Now there's one other twist here, is that the District of Columbia, Washington D.C. right over here, in Congress gets no representatives. They have no senators and they have no representatives, but they do get 3 electoral votes when it comes to deciding who is going to be president. Now you might already be have a sense here that maybe this winner-take-all system might lead to some distortions. And the biggest distortion of all is you can imagine a candidate who wins the popular vote, and loses the election, or loses in the electoral college. And you might think, well, gee, how can that happen? And the way to think about it is, imagine let's say someone gets, with the states that they win, they get huge majorities. So let's say there's a conservative candidate, they get.
All right. How many senators and representatives does the District of Columbia have, or Washington, D.C.?
None.
0.
C.
That's correct. Washington, D.C. is not considered a state on its own. So therefore, it has no true say in the election.
And he or she gets huge majorities in the states they win. 80% in Texas. They get 80% in Mississippi. They get 80% in Oklahoma. They get huge majorities in the states that they win. And the states that they lose, they barely lose. And they barely lose those really big states. So let's say in Florida, that candidate, I should say, gets 49% of the vote. So they had a lot of votes in Florida, but not enough to win it. The other person, let's say, gets 51%. All 27 go to the other candidate. Let's say the same thing happens in California. That candidate got 49% of the vote. The opponent, let's say, gets 51% of the vote. All 55 go to California. You get no credit for that 49%. You get no credit for that 49% in Florida. So in this situation, this candidate might actually end up with a majority, barely losing the states they lose and trouncing the other candidate in the states that they win, but despite that, actually getting fewer electoral college votes.
All right. So now that that's over, we have a nice little PowerPoint that I'm going to show you right now. We'll pause that. All right, class. Our PowerPoint will just ask us a couple questions about the Electoral College. All right. So we're going to start off with, what is the Electoral College? Anybody have a guess?
It's a college where you go to learn to be an elector.
No. That was awful.
Okay.
You can pick the president.
Who?
Yeah.
Trump.
Who can
Yeah.
pick the president?
People that were voted to pick him.
People that went to college?
Yeah.
I mean, that's not wrong. But the Electoral College is a process, not a place. The Founding Fathers established it in the Constitution as a compromise between the election of the president by a vote in Congress and election of the president by a popular vote qualified of the citizens. Y'all were all wrong. Alrighty. So next we will go with, how are the electoral candidates selected? Anybody got a guess?
We vote for them.
Yeah.
We vote for them.
Yeah.
Once again, y'all are wrong. Y'all are gonna fail this test. I don't know where that went. The process is controlled by the political parties in each state. The parties either nominate slates of potential electors at their state party conventions, or they chose them by a vote of the party's central committee. Each state chooses electors amounting in number to that state's combined total of senators and representatives. Y'all were somewhat close.
Okay.
We had a malfunction. It's okay. Alright, so we already did what is the Electoral College and how are the electoral candidates selected. So next we will go with, why was it created? Anybody got a guess?
Set us apart from
You're wrong.
England.
Alright. The mode of the selection of the president was one of the most difficult issues in the 1787 convention. Some delegates wanted the president to be selected by the legislature. Some delegates were opposed to direct election and were concerned that presidents would always come from popular states. The final decision to have electors was the result of a compromise and presented to the convention on September 4th, 1787. You were kind of close. I cut you off. Alright, so last but not least, when do the electoral candidates vote? Any guesses?
November 8th.
November 8th, yeah.
Every 4 years, on the first Monday after the second Wednesday in December, the members of the U.S. Electoral College meet to elect some fit person as the President of the United States. So not even close to November. Almost everyone in America knows that the Constitution provides that the President will be selected by an electoral college, not by direct popular vote.
Oh.
Okay.
And now we have the how, when, why, and where, or what the Electoral College is. So did y'all learn anything today?
Yeah.
What?
The Electoral College is the thing that actually votes for our president, and that we just really don't have a say-so in it because they're picked by our representatives and not by us, and they're supposed to vote for the president.
You are exactly correct.
All right.
I mean, that is textbook definition of the Electoral College. Thank y'all. Test Monday.